everybody, and welcome to another episode of Eating at a Meeting. Today is July 1st. It is monumental in the United States. It is the day that the California's Allergen Disclosure for Dining Experience Act takes effect. It was signed into law in October of 2025, and it is effective today. And I am so excited to have Addie Lao with us today, who she and her daughter were the instigators, the pushers of this bill. So hello, Robin. How's it feel?
Hi, good morning. Oh my gosh, this feels amazing. I can't believe the day has finally come. And it's still a little bit surreal to me, to be honest.
Yeah.
We had worked on it for quite a bit. And, to see that today is finally the day that it's going to be implemented is just, wow, such an amazing feeling.
What's Addie's feeling today? Is she excited?
Oh my gosh, she is so excited. I think we recently, been going out to eat a little bit more. And just seeing some of the new QR codes that are out there linking to allergen menus, it's just been really exciting to see. So definitely we'll be, looking out for that more, and definitely invite others to do so. And if you're not seeing it in effect, please give us some feedback so we can make sure that it's, being implemented.
So, and I wrote an article for North Star, and I chatted with the Department of California's health inspectors. And I know this is going to, yes, it comes effective today, but they're not going to really put the hard hammer down on restaurants today. It's still a learning thing. So what have you seen that you said you've been eating out a little bit more, and what do you expect to come in the next couple of months, year?
Yeah, definitely. Like you said, I think, it's definitely going to take some education. So, things like this podcast, getting the word out, I think is so important so that restaurants really know kind of what is happening. And again, yes, we are working with the inspectors to make sure that they're knowledgeable about it and sharing it with restaurants. So we do know that there will be, maybe a little bit of lag time to get things going. But, when we go out to eat now, we are looking, part of SB 68 does require now for there to be a QR code on the menu that links to the allergen information so that it's easier to find.
And how, so tell a little bit more about what it is. I know it's restaurants that have more than 20 locations nationwide, but fill in everybody about the law and what it does entail.
Yes, thank you. So, of course, this applies to California. And starting today, restaurants with 20 or more locations in the United States, meaning if they have at least one of their restaurant locations in California, it does apply to them. And what they need to do is have top 9 allergen information for their menu items. And there needs to be a QR code at the point of ordering. So either on the menu, or if they're a drive-through, it has to be on their drive-through menu. And it does actually include beverages as well.
Nice.
So, yep. And when you're in person dining at the restaurant, if unfortunately your phone battery dies or you don't have access to a device to be able to scan the QR code, if you were to ask the restaurant, they are supposed to be able to provide the allergen information in writing for you.
Awesome. So it should be on the printed menu, at least, maybe not on every single menu, but at least they have documentation there that they can show you.
Correct. Or they should be able then to provide a device at least to be able to see the information.
Right.
But some way to be able to show the information. Exactly.
So they're not limited to making 500 copies that are changed daily of their menu and that.
Correct. Yes. It does not have to be on all the menus, but at least, one allergen menu resource, essentially.
Right. Okay. And the restaurants that you've been going to, have you, the experience with the servers, how has that been?
Yeah, I think some of them may not all know about the legislation quite yet, but it has been, some nice little surprises where we have gone to restaurants that we have gone before, some restaurant chains, and noticing now that there are QR codes that weren't there before, at least we didn't notice before. So definitely the allergen information being more readily available.
That's fantastic. And which is a nice surprise, right? Because you've now got a lot more information to it. And have you heard anybody saying, hey, this has been a challenge? How can we, or they're like, hey, we're really, I'm sure I'm going to say really excited to be able to provide this information, but has anybody given you any pushback on it?
Not to me personally, and maybe they just, aren't speaking to me directly, of course.
Right.
But,
Yes.
we have been able to talk with some restaurants that, they had just found out about the bill. I recently, Addie and I did with Food Sage a Sacramento food allergy walk. And this was earlier, in the month. Sorry, actually, it was in May for Food Allergy Awareness Month. And, so a restaurant brand heard about it and they said, oh, actually, we had just heard about the bill. We definitely want to implement this. And they were excited to learn
Nice.
At the walk about, food allergies and just, why it's so important to label. And they definitely came on board and were very supportive of our walk and the Dine Allergy Safe Fund, et cetera. So, things like that are just really exciting to hear. I think when people are empowered with information to know that, hey, this isn't just another thing that we're required to do, but the reason behind it, that this can really help save lives and provide your customers with more information and really, end up having more loyal customers to your business.
Right. Yeah. Yeah. I mean, and I actually went to a restaurant last night and it's like, okay, so what is gluten-free on the menu? He's like, that, and it was a bartender and he's like, oh, well, let me tell you, like 95% of our menu can be made gluten-free. And this bartender knew a lot of information about the entire menu, which I thought was fantastic. But I shared with him that somebody recently, when planning an event, said, well, we're not legally required to tell you what's in our food. We'll tell you what it's free of. And he's like, our menus are not secret, and like, he's like, we should, people should be doing this. And I'm like, I took his picture and his name and I'm definitely going to talk about him. His name's Jeremy and it was at Dockside, but it was mind boggling that somebody was like, well, we don't have to legally tell you. I'm like, it's not rocket science. I mean, you just don't want to kill people.
Absolutely. And what I actually learned in working for SB 68 is, prior to the Addie bill being implemented, if we were to go to a restaurant and disclose that, hey, my daughter has food allergies, they were required already to tell us verbally if the dish contained her allergens. And that was already, they were liable once they said that verbally. So, the liability actually doesn't change the fact that they're now required to write it down. It just is providing information written as well as verbal. And so the liability doesn't change anything. This is a risk reduction for restaurants because our wait staff who previously may not have had something to reference now has something to reference, and it just makes it all the more safer and decreases that risk.
And I love that explanation of it too, because somebody's like, well, we'll just have chefs there to answer the questions. And I was at a catered event a couple of months ago and they're like, well, ask the chef what's in the food. He's like, yeah, I made it this morning. I said, well, is this or this in it? He's like, I don't remember. So I'm like, having it written down and making sure that the recipes are accurate, is so much more important to reduce that risk, like you said.
Absolutely. And, some of the more, fast casual restaurants, there may not always be a chef, right? For instance, Addie and I had tried this really nice vegan fast food place where it was a vegan burger, mac and cheese, etc. And when I said, oh, well, is there a chef to speak to? They're like, well, there's not really a chef, but they actually had an allergen binder. And so that was huge for us because we were about to order the mac and cheese and then read in the binder that, oh my gosh, sesame was a hidden allergen in that mac and cheese dish, which we were not expecting. And that is definitely one of Addie's allergies. So that was, a near miss. And thank goodness for the information that we were able to.
And the fact that that team knew that there was an allergen binder is even more important because some servers don't even know that it exists.
Absolutely. Yep. And that was a resource for them because he said, oh, I actually don't know, but thank goodness we have this. And so it was a perfect example of, the wait staff being able to reference something and not having a chef available to be able to double check. Right.
Yeah. Yes. Yeah. And I was chatting with a hotelier the other day, and which will not apply to him because it's a single restaurant, single hotel, but he only has 2 cooks in the restaurant. And he's like, we don't have like a variety of different departments and those things. And so it would not be something that he would necessarily have. But But because he's that, he also does have that because he's cognizant of it. He also came from our allergy world before, but they can make a lot more things on Scratch Kitchen. They're more of a Scratch Kitchen than what a location with 20, a venue with more than 20 locations or more might not be a Scratch Kitchen.
Yep, exactly.
Yeah.
And what also came up when we were, working on SB 68 was, the question about, like you said, some are Scratch Kitchens, but some have bulk supply sauces and things like that. How do they then know if they're getting it from a supply company? But we actually found that the FDA has a mandate that bulk supply items actually have to be labeled with top 9 allergens. So they may not know every single ingredient. It's not like the grocery store that has every single ingredient, but they are required to label top 9 allergens on bulk supply items.
And one of a note on that, because I'm doing an event and the bulk supply box does have it, but sometimes when you take it out of the box, it's not on that package inside the box. So it's really important for that food service provider to maintain that label. And actually somebody pulled out some ice cream bars the other day and the ice cream bars weren't labeled. It was just a plain white package. So it's really important to keep that outside label with that food so you do know that information. And of course, document it somewhere else, not just holding the piece of the box, right?
Absolutely.
Now, so you all did the walk in May, to push this forward more and to educate a lot more people. What's the next step besides let's get this implemented, right? Get everybody used to it. But what do you see coming, you and Addie want to see coming in the future behind it?
Yeah, great question. I think really we do want to see more states implement ADDE-like bills, right? And so we already saw this year more states introduce the bill. We're still waiting for, some states to be successful. We're hoping, for next year, et cetera. But I think, as the momentum continues to grow, we're really hoping for, other states to implement it. And then, the future goal will be a federal mandate. And then, of course, obviously this applies to the large chains, but the ultimate goal will be for, all restaurants, for this to apply to one day.
Yeah. And I talked to Representative Carter from Michigan, and hers is any food service provider that the bill that she's pushing forward or has introduced and is pushing forward is to be any food service provider. So for clarification for people, in California, again, it is for food service providers that have 20 locations or more that provide pretty much the same food everywhere they go, right? And so it's a start, and we'd love to go to expand it, but further than that. But I would love to see it across. And I know the food code is changing in a lot of different states that are requiring it, but it doesn't have teeth like the law does.
Exactly. Before SB 68 passed, yes, the U.S. Food Code did recommend it as best practice, but without a mandate saying, "Hey, this is required," unfortunately, many restaurants didn't implement it yet.
Right, and health inspectors trying to execute that, regulating and educating and regulating at the same time is there's a lot of restaurants out there, right? So not everybody gets, can get it full force, not harshly, but, in full force across the board. Yeah. What does, and I want to take it back to, because you and Addie, and as I put on underneath your name there, the champions of this. So Addie has multiple food allergies. You mentioned sesame was one of hers, but take us back. I mean, why did you champion this?
Yeah, I think she's had allergies since she was a baby. And so this has really been her life, and rarely we were able to dine out with her. I mean, even if we do go out, we unfortunately have to pack her meal. And it's very, very difficult to get good information, so we are obviously always asking the wait staff. We have those conversations. And we found that, it's just really hard to know if the food is safe. But we found that in the restaurants that had labeling, those were the ones that she was able to safely dine at. And so, this was born out of a really wonderful experience that we had. This was a Mother's Day meal that I always talk about. But, this Chinese restaurant had labeling. We sought them out, drove 3 hours to go there. And that was the very first time she was able to have a full entire meal at a Chinese restaurant, which is, we're Chinese. And so it was just so special to us. I was literally crying watching her eat the dumplings because, this was a first time occurrence for us. And, we just found that, wow, labeling can really open the doors and make the experience so much safer. We had so much more confidence being there. And, really it was with the wait staff too. You could tell that they also were so much more knowledgeable and confident as well in giving us the information. So absolutely, we still had those conversations and double checked. But we just saw how the culture of that restaurant was so different because there was labeling. And, it was just a very educated staff. So after that experience, we felt like, wow, this should really be the norm, and found that, wow, in US, there was no mandate. Even though in the EU, it had been normal for the last 10 years, they have had a law for 10 years. And so we really felt pretty strongly that this should be something that we start here in the US.
That's all. And you're going to kick it off. And it's very inspirational. And thank you both for doing that. And Addie is so happy. And, when I've talked to her before, that how she's done this and she got on Capitol Hill for everybody, spoke up to the senators on the Hill live, and her classmates came. But, it passed 39-0, right? In the Senate or passed in the Senate 39-0 and 66-1 in the Assembly. That doesn't happen, by accident.
Yeah, I would say so. This is definitely not something we did alone. We were definitely new advocates on the scene. I had never done anything like this before, and just started out definitely as a newbie. Met a lot of wonderful, wonderful seasoned advocates who became mentors, who, joined in our coalition. We had over 70 organizations join on in support. So this was definitely a group effort. I mean, AFA, our co-sponsor, they, definitely shepherded us along the way of what we can do and, introducing us to others. And Senator Menjivar, oh my gosh, she definitely championed this as someone with food allergies herself. So definitely we could not have done this alone. And this was a big group effort from our food allergy community.
Right. Yeah. And the fact that the senators and the representatives understood that and voted it almost unanimously to get this done, they saw the need for it.
Yes, absolutely. And in our meetings with them, because obviously before each of the hearings, we met with the offices individually. And it was just so surprising because in those conversations, they were like, wow, this seems common sense. I think in speaking with them, they were really happy to learn about food allergies more. And just kind of hearing our stories of how, this impacts our lives, right? And so I think a lot of them were happy to support this when hearing about more of this information, and really felt like this made a lot of sense.
Right. And I want to go back to the fact that you drove 3 hours to a restaurant. I mean, but that's the loyalty. And I want, people talk about the risk about allergens, like, oh, we can't tell you that because we can't tell you what's in our food, whatever. I mean, that's a scare not a tactic, but that's a fear of communicating. And as you've shared in multiple stories, it's like the servers felt more confident. They were more knowledgeable, and it is reducing the risk, but it's also creating an environment where you're going to get people to travel 3 hours to come to dinner.
Absolutely. And we are loyal customers to that restaurant chain. So, when we find restaurants that are educated, that have protocols in place, absolutely, we are constant customers of theirs.
Right. They should put a sign up like, hey, we're the instigators of the ADDE Act, right? Yeah. And they could learn from them, right? The other restaurants can learn from them about how they did that. All right. Well, I know you've got to get to work, and I so appreciate you joining me here. And what do you want the people in California and the visitors to California to really understand what they should start seeing going forward and what this means to you and Addie.
Yes, absolutely. So, I invite people in California to, seek out some of these restaurants. And, I'm hoping that when you do go dine out, that on the menu, you should see a QR code that links to allergen information. Um, and again, if you do not have a device or your phone's dead that day, if you ask the staff, they should be able to provide that information for you as well. So, my hope is that more people with food allergies will feel more confident to dine out with this information. Mm-hmm. And hopefully that, restaurants that this doesn't apply to may jump on board and voluntarily do this, just seeing the benefit of it.
And if they want to quote unquote jump on the bandwagon, but to get support from you and Addie, is there a way that they can get a hold of you to find out more information about the law because they may not know about it yet?
Yes, thank you. Yes, we have a website, addietellsall.com, and her Instagram handle is addietellsall. So that's kind of our main hub for information and where we'll be kind of sharing our experiences when we dine out, of where we see allergen menus in the wild, and definitely, more information to come about other states and things like that and how you can support. So definitely please give us a follow and reach out to me if you have more questions.
Yeah. And just so everybody knows, the bill is the ADDE, which is the Allergen Disclosure in Dining Environments, but Addie's Instagram is ADDIE.
Yes, thank
just
you.
for the clarification on that, if you're looking for it. But, and I'm so glad that they found a name for it, based on her name, an acronym for it.
Acronym.
So yes. Robin, thank you so much for advocating on behalf of everyone with food allergies, and you and Addie doing the work, and the rest of your family, of course, as well. And it's really important, and I'm excited to come to California and see how it's implemented.
Thank you so much, Tracy. And you were one of our first, early supporters. So thank you so much.
You're welcome.
Support to the allergy community.
I appreciate it. Yeah, it takes a lot of us to make, for this village, and to push acts together like this forward and to make change. So I appreciate it. Thanks.
Wonderful. We shall go out and have dinner tonight.
Yes, ma'am. I actually am. I'm actually on site right now managing an event, and I was hired to manage the food and beverage for the people with dietary needs. And I have 500 people with different dietary needs at this event. And so that is my job, is working with all of the venues to make sure they've got something safe to eat. So right along with what you're doing.
Perfect. Well, thank you for what you do.
All right. Thanks. All right. I will talk to you both soon. Thanks.
Have a good day. Bye.
You too. Okay. So I'm going to continue on a little bit. And again, this is about California's new food allergy law, the ADDE Act, which came effective today. It was passed into law, or made into law last October, but it becomes effective today. And it requires that food service establishments with 20 or more locations operating under the same name and offering substantially the same menu items, they now have to label for the top 9 allergens. And for anyone who doesn't know the top 9 allergens, they are wheat, soy, milk, egg, peanuts, tree nuts, fish, sesame, and shellfish. So again, milk, eggs, fish, shellfish, tree nuts, peanuts, wheat, soy, and sesame. And so that has to be labeled on menus or on a QR code, or, as Robin mentioned, in an allergen binder. And I thought that was really insightful, or that server learned that the macaroni and cheese had sesame as a hidden ingredient. And so that's what's really, really important and valuable about this ADDE Act, is that these 9 allergens, you might not see it. It's like McDonald's has the sesame seed bun. That's a sesame seed bun because you can see the sesame. But in that macaroni and cheese, it was probably ground up into the cheese and you couldn't see it. So that's why this law is really important. And as Robin also said too, it helps the servers, right? It helps the servers communicate clearly to your guests. And one chef said, you're only as good as what your servers can provide. So when it comes to meetings and events, One, I'm going to talk about first the restaurant. So I did a search for restaurants that actually are higher level restaurants that are used for a lot of corporate events. You can rent their space, but the chain restaurants that have 20 locations or more, and at least one in California, include like Benihana, the Capitol Grill, Chart House, Fogo de Chao, Maggiano's, Ocean Prime, Nobu, True Food Kitchen, Top Golf. They are all now going to be required to have this allergen information on their menus or on a QR code or in a binder. So if you're booking those venues, those restaurants for your event space, definitely ask them for that information. It helps you plan your menus around attendees' dietary needs. It's a safety thing, yes, but it does help you organize and design menus maybe free of the top 9, right? You're not going to do it completely free of the top 9, but you could eliminate one. If somebody's allergic to shellfish, you can make that'll help you completely eliminate a menu item because of a hidden ingredient potentially. So looking for those those restaurants that are in California, if booking one of those, definitely ask for them. I did put in the chat on LinkedIn, and I'll add it to Facebook, 2 articles that I wrote for North Star Meetings Group about this law and some other pending laws and what we can do for going forward. But going back to a couple of other episodes of Eating at a Meeting and talking to Joshua Grimes and Mary Vargas and Ryan Gambala, all attorneys, all coming at it from a different perspective. But I thought it was really important that Ryan said, if anyone in the hotel or anyone in the food service environment has been told that somebody has an allergen, like say Robin and Addie went to a restaurant and they said, oh, she's got a sesame allergy, to the hostess or to the server that's cleaning the table as they're sitting them down, or, as they're clearing the table from another guest, if they mention, oh, by the way, I have a sesame allergy, Ryan said, now the entire restaurant is on notice, and you have to have your policies and procedures and your SOPs in place to understand that. And I'm going to say this to all of my hotel partners in California, well, across the country, same thing applies. Once somebody knows about your allergen on your staff, your whole staff is now on alert, and you need to have policies in place on how to manage that. Because as what Robin said a few minutes ago, the FDA has a law in place that if somebody discloses an allergen to you, you are now already required to let them know if that allergen is in the food that you're serving them. This is just making you write it down for that consumer's view of it, right? It's not just in the back of the house. The ADDE Act requires it to be seen by the consumer. And we're not asking you for your menu, for your entire recipe. We're just asking you to disclose the top 9 allergens. And whether it applies to our hotel chains is still, I kind of think, a work in progress. But to me, this is my opinion and how I am going to talk to hotel companies in there, but hotel management companies, you manage 20 locations across the country, right? And if you have one in California, to me, because you probably serve majority of the exact same food in every one of those properties, you would fall under the ADDE Act. And if you don't, you might as well adhere to it anyways to create a better environment, right? You're going to get more heads in beds, and you're going to get more people into your restaurant if you understand the law and you're going ahead and labeling that information and having staff understand that. This is the ADDE Act is the beginning, right? This is the first law in the United States. As Robin said, it's been in the EU and the UK actually since 2014. So for 12 years now, the allergen labeling laws on unpackaged food have been around. Here in the US, this is the first one. The food codes are changing. Some states are introducing bills that would mimic the ADDE Act. But as I mentioned earlier, Michigan is saying all food service providers, not just restaurants or venues with 20 locations or more. So I'm excited that this law becomes effective today. If you have any questions about it, please call me. If you want to learn how to do this, please call me. We can work together to make sure that your food is labeled and you understand what that entails, and educate your team on that. So I appreciate you listening, and I can't wait to meet. And whoever wants to go to lunch in California or dinner, let me know, because I want to see these menus and these QR codes out there. So everyone, have a great day. Stay safe and eat well, and check out for QR codes in California. Thanks for listening to the Eating at a Meeting podcast, where every meal matters. I'm Tracy Stuckrath, your food and beverage inclusion expert. Call me and let's get started right now on creating safe and inclusive food and beverage experiences for your customers, your employees, and your communities. Share the podcast with your friends and colleagues at our Eating at a Meeting Facebook page and on all podcast platforms. To learn more about me and receive valuable information, go to tracystuckrath.com. And if you'd like more information on how to feed engagement, nourish inclusion, and bolster your bottom line, then visit eatingatameeting.com.